Hey guys, in this video I'm going to be doing a mod of the Chaser88, and this is by popular request. So I'm going to basically strip this down and get rid of all the components that aren't needed for it to fly, because in my opinion, at 71 grams, this is way too heavy and contributes to its poor flight characteristics. And I'm going to be replacing the flight controller that has the 6500 gyro, which is, in my opinion, a inferior gyro to the one that's on the board that I'm going to be putting in, which was reviewed a couple of days ago, the Micro Betaflight OSD board with the 6000 gyro. So I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the steps I've taken in doing these mods. I'm not going to show you any soldering on camera. I typically don't, and if you are a beginner and don't really know how to solder, or especially know how to solder really small components, I don't recommend doing this modification at all, because it's, in my opinion, an intermediate to an advanced modification. So you're going to really need to know what you're doing, and if you do, then you should be able to figure out what I'm doing here based on the video that I'm showing and the diagrams and such. So if you have any questions, let me know at the end of the video. Okay, at this point I just want to show how much I've disassembled the Chaser88 here. I haven't desoldered anything. Obviously I've taken the props off and the camera, and I've taken this aluminum protection bar. There's just these two screws right here that go underneath right there to take those two off, but to get to those you got to take off this foam padding. And it's just pretty easy to peel off, and probably not going to use that again, so not exactly sure what purpose that served, but I got rid of that. And at this point everything's exposed. You just have to unscrew the four screws underneath here that are basically tied into these nuts right here that go on this camera mount. That's what holds the whole thing together. And then once you do that, everything will just come apart. Everything is held together with these little, what are these called? Washers, like little rubber washers. And all you gotta do is pull those off, and then you can take the flight controller off. This is that right there. And also remove the LED bar. There's some glue here that was holding it to the carbon fiber, but as you know, glue doesn't really hold that well to carbon fiber, so it just popped right off anyway. I'm going to actually get rid of that because it's extra weight, and I'm not going to use the protection bar either. Probably switch the camera for something later with a whip antenna and give it a lower profile. And I'm going to also, at this point, take the XD30 connector off, desolder that, desolder the LED bar, desolder the flight controller, and then we'll take a look at what that looks like at that point before I start putting in new stuff. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys the wiring I did on this micro Betaflight with OSD board. It's it's called a micro omnibus board, and I've taken the cable off of the 4-in-1 ESC here. That's what's connected right here. To make this a little bit easier to wire up, there's 4 signal wires and a ground, and they're going to go to these corresponding motor pads to the same motors that are on the connector here. And there's 2 over here on this side along with the ground, and there's going to be 2 more on the other side. One right here, the orange one, and there's one right here, the white one. I've taken the same wires off of the old flight controller for the receiver, which is this one here, right here, and that's going to the 3 pins on this back row. That goes to this connector, and then this pigtail for the camera is the one that goes to the EF01, and I believe this one is a reverse polarity wired for this connector, so just be aware that if you decide to use a different camera, I'm going to use the same camera, so I'm using the same wire, and it's going to the 5-volt output on this first rail here. So it should be pretty easy to mount up to this setup here. I do have to give it power to the board. It's going to go to the battery pads there and there. So I'm going to solder that on once I finish up the connection. I have some two M2.5 screws. These are some M2.5 metal screws and some nylon standoffs here that I'm using so I can mount this board, which has M2.5 holes here for the mounting holes. And I'm reusing some of these rubber washers. It's hard to see between the main plate and the 4-in-1 ESC. There's two of them there, and the screw goes through that, goes through the board, and then this standoff screws into that screw. So I'm just going to put the board on top, solder on my power, and the receiver is going to go on top of the flight controller, and I'll show you that step in the next part. Okay, so here's what it looks like with the flight controller mounted. I used some of those rubber washers there just to give a little more vibration dampening, and this is the receiver on top. Got the pigtail going underneath like that, and we got the pigtail for the camera coming out the side, and gonna go put the camera mount back on top like this and use some screws to screw that down, and that ought to pretty much do it. So I'll be right back with the camera and everything installed. And I forgot to mention that I also swapped out the XD30 connector for a JST, so the setup should be quite a bit lighter. Okay guys, so here it is all done. As you see, I mounted the camera mount back on top here with some screws. These are just nylon M2.5 screws and M2.5 standoffs going all the way through. And I am using some of these rubber washers here, these little O-rings, and hopefully that'll help with some of the vibration. Obviously a lot of these pieces are gone that were on there before. They're over here now. And the weight drop is pretty dramatic actually, with 72 grams before with all that stuff on, and then after modifying all of these parts, taking all that stuff off, it's now down to 55 grams, so about 15 grams, 16 gram difference. So I did go ahead and also swapped out the props. These are the Rotorex 25-35 props that are cut down to 2 inches, and they're a lot lighter. So for 4 of these, they weigh about 2.8 grams in total. For the DYS props, come in at 4.4 grams, so shave a couple of grams by just switching the props in. I'm going from a 3-bladed to a 4-bladed, and I already know that these Rotorex props are pretty quiet, so I should have some better flights, maybe a little bit more power hopefully. We'll find out, I guess, what these 10,000 kV motors can do. But yeah, you can see it's significantly different looking than it was before. I obviously got rid of the foam padding underneath. I am continuing to use the rubber bands here, and I just have them wrapped around this little part of the carbon fiber sticking out, and I have a zip tie here so it doesn't slip off. And got some sticky stuff here for the battery to hold it on, so you just slide the battery underneath here. Swapped out the JST connector. So this is pretty light. I think the heaviest components are still going to be the camera and this camera mount, so I might swap those out. I could also shave a couple grams if I modify the receiver by getting rid of that plastic cover as well. A few more things I can do, maybe shave a few more grams off, but it's pretty light as it is, and much lighter than it was before. So hopefully with the new flight controller in there and gyro, the flight performance will be a lot better. So we'll have to roll that flight footage now, and hopefully it'll turn out a lot better than it was before. So I gotta warn you that this thing flies so much better than the original review. It flies like it's almost a completely different drone. Just so much faster, so much more controlled, and none of the wobbles. It's very precise. It doesn't really do much of anything except fly really well. And something that's also really remarkable is I must have spent 2 or 3 hours trying to tune the old setup and was not able to do anything to get it to fly anywhere close to this. And these PIDs are pretty much just like out of the box PIDs. I haven't done any tuning at all. This is basically, I think this is like the 2nd or 3rd flight without any PID changes. So I think that I could even get this to fly even better with some slightly better tuned PIDs. It is a little bit robotic feeling in the movements, but other than that, it flies extremely smooth. So all in all, I'm actually really happy with the results here. And if you guys happen to buy this and are unhappy with your Chaser88, then go ahead and give these mods a try and see how it flies for you. I personally find it flies much better. It's actually gone from one of my least favorite quads to probably one of my favorite quads now, so I'll be flying this quite a bit now. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this mod video, and as always, let me know if you guys like this kind of videos, and if you want to see more videos like this, let me know. Always leave me comments, and I always read all those. So hope you guys like it. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one.